to this dying world. Stand firm, Paul says, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Look, Paul, I say to you that if you accept circumcision, Christ will be of no advantage to you, of no value to you. I testify again to every man who accepts circumcision that he is obligated to keep the whole law. Now, Paul's already made this case earlier on in Galatians, wherein he quotes Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 26, essentially saying that if you seek to be justified by keeping the law, any part of the law, well, then you have chosen that path. You've chosen the path of trying to fulfill the law on your own, and that means you have to fulfill the entirety of the law. You have to fulfill the entirety of the book. You have to fulfill all the law. And so if you're going to take that path, and you're going to let circumcision or whatever law it is that you think is going to make you right with God, you've got to complete it all. You've got to do each and everything perfectly. So if you accept circumcision, if you accept that route, if you believe these Judaizers and these false teachers, these legalists among you, then you've got to go to the very end of keeping the entirety of the law, and you are severed from Christ. You who would be justified. You've fallen from grace. Now, the key to understanding this verse is really twofold. The first comes with that phrase right there in the middle, you who would be justified. Notice he's not saying they are justified, some of them. He's saying you're claiming to be justified. You are claiming to know the grace of God. You are claiming to trust Christ. In fact, you're not. Those who would accept circumcision and strive to keep the entirety of the law in order to be made right with God actually don't know God. They actually don't know Christ because they're not trusting Christ, because they're not trusting the gospel of Christ. Paul says, you who would be justified by the law, you've fallen from grace. Is it possible to fall from grace? Is it possible to be severed from Christ, to be joined him and then severed from him? Is it possible to have grace and then fall from grace? No. Paul is speaking in a matter of speaking in a way in order to make his point. Because in truth, Paul understands well that there are many in the church who profess to be Christians, though they are not true Christians.